You know what, man? Y'all think I hate Pat Williams, huh? I don't hate Pat Williams. I actually like him. Like, actually really like Pat Will. And I gotta thank DJ for this because DJ was the first one talking about Pat Will way back before he was drafted. And I remember distinctly when Chicago drafted him, he's like, they got a good one. So I've been keeping my eye low key on him all year. With that being said, look, you guys got to understand something philosophically about me. 9 times out of 10, unless you're one of those transcendent talents, I usually don't want a ton of responsibility. For that matter, playing time too, probably heaped on you in like your first 2, maybe 3 years. Asking a second year player who just turned 20 like last week to all of a sudden have to be a big boy or a big man in a man's league and have to do that shit at the highest level consistently is not something I want to see Pat Will do. You might be like, okay, that's fine, but he's still a really good player. I never said he wasn't. My thing is this, and if you go back and listen, most of my statements ain't about Pat Will himself. It's always what happens after him, meaning what comes up after him. So, like I mentioned in particular, like, okay, I said Blake Griffin gonna drop 42 on our head. That don't mean that he's gonna drop all 42. First of all, I was being facetious. But that don't mean that he's gonna drop all 42 on Pat Will's head. What I want people to understand is this. When Pat Will, let's just say he has a game where he's getting into foul trouble, all right? First quarter, 4 minutes in, he's got 2 fouls. He's got to sit. Who's coming off the bench to guard Blake Griffin? You might be like, well, we got some other pieces and stuff. Look, none of those other pieces have the combination of defense, rebounding, passing, and shooting that Pat Will has. There's a huge drop-off from Pat Will to everybody else on that bench. Is that fair to say? Now, in the backcourt, it's a drop-off, but it's not as big because, yeah, Zach LaVine is on a whole nother level than Kobe, and Lonzo's on a whole nother level than Caruso. But Caruso and Kobe are much closer to Zach and Zoe than Pat Will is to the next guy. I'm saying to you guys, when I make these statements, it's not to denigrate Pat Will, but one, he's still a young player. He's going to make mistakes. Happens. And he's going to make mistakes in critical games. Happens. But when he can't make any more mistakes, what do you go to? We don't have anything. Which is why one of my big peeves about Acme, which is the nickname they've given to Mark Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas, is the simple fact that they don't have the power forward that they need. It's why I critiqued the Lauri Markkanen trade. It's why I'm also critiquing drafting Ayo. I don't even know his full name. I know it. I just ain't going to try to pronounce it. That's one of my issues. Just for frame of reference, guys, I typically want 3 guys at each position. It seems like we got probably, it depends on how you value Ayo. 2 guys at point guard, like 4 at shooting guard, like 6 damn near at small forward, just Pat Will at power forward basically, and like 2 bigs. We don't have balance. One of the things, if you follow me any length of time, one of the things that I critique the Pelicans about, they didn't have wing depth, particularly coming after Zion. And so that issue persists, except instead of having Zion, we got Pat Will, much bigger skill gap. But even still, we still don't have anybody. So to me, it'd be different. Like if we'd have got Nader from Phoenix, who we should try to make like, I don't know, we should try to call Phoenix and be like, look, man, who can we give you along with picks to get Nader? He would be a perfect fit for our team. And if you follow me any length of time on Twitter, you know I've been talking about him for like 2 or 3 years. But it would be different if we had someone like that. It'd be like, oh, okay, cool, I ain't worried then. It's like, fuck it. If Pat will get into foul trouble, which can and will happen at some point in the league, he's got to sit. If he's got to sit versus Giannis, versus KD, versus whoever you put him on, what you got? You'll play DeRozan on Giannis? Outstanding. Is that what y'all want to do? Let me know. It's, again, none of this is to shit on Pat Will because I like him. It's just he's not ready yet. He's not ready to play veteran pro-level ball. Don't mean he's a bad player at all because he's not. I'm just saying, here, okay, let me frame it this way. This team had little expectations last year. You got Lonzo, DeRozan, and Caruso. You made the trade for Vooch. This team instantly got expectations. What's going to happen is, if everybody else is performing and he's not, they're going to look at him negatively. He don't need that. This team is probably a year or two away. Having said that, DeRozan and Vooch probably won't be on the team then. Well, Vooch may or may not. DeRozan would still have a year. But the point is, he's got, like that time that you would normally get to grow a player without questions and without issues, it's gone. It's okay, think about this. If you love Lonzo and you followed him since the Lakers, rookie year is one thing. They get LeBron, expectations change. That's kind of what happened here. You get all these guys, expectations change. I personally wanted them to get a power forward that they could have maybe put Pat Will off the bench. That way the expectations won't be on him to come in and just dominate. But he would have been good enough off the bench to where he could come in and do all the stuff he would have needed to do. And he would be a very good reserve. And you don't need, whoever you would have got there, you only need them for like a year or so. So they would sit there, basically groom him. Pat Will could still grow, and yada, yada, yada. Now, there's going to be people that be like, trial by fire. Just put him in there, fuck it. I got no issue with that, truthfully. But in my mind, I'm sitting here thinking, Zach's 26. Zoe will be 24 next month. DeRozan's 31. Vooch, I think, is 30 or 31. Probably need to be pushing. And because of that, it's why I'm like, You know, now, hear me out. Most nights, most of the shit I'm saying probably won't be an issue if I'm being real. Because let's look at a team like Miami, right? Who are they going to put there? Morris, P.J. Tucker, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson. I mean, they're not bad, but it's not anything where I think, oh, they're going to dominate and take over the game. You know, Pat Will can still play and do what he needs to do. Another team. Let's talk about I'm trying to think of a good team because the more and more I think about it, I was like, oh, there's some solid power forwards. You know what? fuck it. Let's talk about Atlanta. They got DeAndre Hunter. And I like him. I really like him. I think DeAndre Hunter should be 24, 25 this year. Can't remember. But very, very, very good young player. Versatile. Y'all know how I like versatility. Solid matchup. I think Pat Will would hold his own. I don't think it'd be that big of an issue with Pat Will being undersized and yada, yada, yada. What I'm more concerned with, and you guys can crucify me for this, I don't give a shit. I'm looking at the long term. First of all, if you think that this team is going to be in the playoffs, raise your hand. Okay, so we all expect a winning season, correct? Raise your hand. Okay, so none of us are really worried about the regular season, correct? We can agree to that, right? Okay, if we can all agree that this team is expected to be in the playoffs, we don't need to think so much about the regular season. So where am I thinking? Postseason, who are the teams you're going to have to play against? Philly, Miami, Brooklyn, Milwaukee. Probably Atlanta. And I'm going to leave the rest. Well, let me throw the Celtics in there too. I'm going to leave the rest away. Of those teams, Hunter or Zach Collins, however you want to do it. Ben Simmons probably, maybe, if he's still there. Giannis Antetokounmpo, KD or Blake. Other team. Celtics, Tatum. And if they, because I think they have Duncan Robinson also listed as a power forward. Him or the Morris twin or PJ Tucker, whatever. The point is, these are solid guys to have to defend. So the margin for error shrinks. And granted, he won't be the same player at the end of the season as he is in the beginning. But my mindset is okay. Because, let me be real, this team is not a championship caliber team. Let me just, can we agree with that? They're not going to get a title this year unless they get a lot of help. A lot of help means key pieces, important pieces are missing on other teams. Could that happen in the case of Brooklyn? Yes. Milwaukee. This team ain't beating Milwaukee. Nor are they beating Brooklyn. Okay? So, unless something tragically happens to one of those teams, you're not going to the finals. And if you get to the finals, this team ain't beating the Lakers in a 7-game series. I don't think they might even beat the Warriors in a 7-game series. And Phoenix to me could be a toss-up. That might be an idea for a good video. Phoenix versus Chicago. I'm going to have to write that down. Anyway. So they're not a championship level team. But Zach hasn't been to the playoffs. He's 26 years old. Zoe hasn't been to the playoffs. 24 years old. Matter of fact, I think Zach will be 27 by the time the playoffs start. Yeah, because he's he's got a March birthday. So he'll be 27. Had never been to the playoffs. Okay? The importance of them not just getting to the playoffs, they don't need to just get there. They need to stay in the playoffs for as long as possible. First round, great. They need to win. Second round, they somehow yet definitely need to win. They need to get all the way to the conference finals. That is a tall fucking task unless somehow Brooklyn and Milwaukee gets matched up in the second round. If that happens, then they got a pathway to get to the conference finals. The reason I'm saying this is because those games go a long way in development. They go a long way in helping elevate your guys that haven't been. Okay, check this out. Gilbert Arenas did his interview with CP3, and CP3 was talking about how different the finals feels versus everything else. What I want you guys to realize, that's going to happen for any player that gets into the playoffs. Regular season and then the playoffs. Golden State was winning to the point they got bored of the regular season. They was waiting to the playoffs because playoffs is fun and is way different. what I'm saying here is, in order to get to this point, we need all pieces clicking. Okay, those matchups are going to be something we're going to have to look at going into the postseason. Now, will this team look to fix power forward next season? They'll probably get somebody else to back up Pat Will. By year 3, Pat Will should start coming into his own. So he'll be much better. He'll be much better equipped. I'm not worried about the next years going forward when it comes to him. I'm sold on Pat Will in that regard. I'm talking about this year, because we don't need them to just get to the playoffs and go like 4-1 and get out of the playoffs. It's getting to the playoffs and getting more and more experience, because it's important for guys like Zach and Zoe who've never been. And now, if you go there, and even though, like, okay, I will say this. Tatum's rookie year, when they got to the playoffs and they went all the way to the conference finals, I think it did a lot for that entire team's development. If you could get these guys into the playoffs and they can make a long run, your Zachs, your Zoes, your Pat Wills, your Kobe Whites, okay, and any of the young guys, it'll benefit them going forward. The longer they could go is more confidence. Because the more you're just like, okay, another example. What's Dwayne Wade? Dwayne Wade was talking about at one point, he was like, getting into the playoffs was one thing. When I got there and I started playing and actually hooping, I was like, yeah, I belong. This is my league. That is the same thing I expect to happen with Pat Will, Lonzo, and Zach LaVine. Even though I think Zach LaVine, he's made an all-star, he's put up numbers. I think he understands he's that dude. Plus, he was playing along those guys in the Olympics. For him, that might be the exception. The Olympics might be the equivalent of the playoffs for him, because he especially got to work next to those guys. And DeRozan has talked about how that, changes your mindset, your wiring, how you go about the business of basketball. Zoe and Pat Will, they need a long playoff run. They need it. Zoe is a little bit older, and so he's at that point where I think he's a little bit safer in that regard, where it's like he's got enough NBA experience to where he should be fine. He's played everybody, okay? I'm not too much worried about him, but he still needs the playoff experience because it changes things. Pat Will does not need to be in the playoffs and get dominated and get his mental crushed. So I want him to get into the playoffs and play really well, because it'll go toward his development. I've been saying all this to say this, guys. I'm not a hater of Pat Will. I love him. I love what he can be. But in order for us to take the next leaps, there's a certain process that we need to go through. And I'm being realistic. I'm not saying, there's some people who are like, oh, Bulls are going to win a championship. I'm not one of those guys. Not this year, at least. Probably not next year either, but they could be closer next year depending on what happens. But for that to happen, this has to happen. So yes, Pat Will is a very good player. I'm not low on him. I'm actually high. I just need him to not have so much pressure on him to perform early. Does that make sense? I hope that clears up my viewpoint. And so whenever I make these videos and I'm talking about the power forward position, don't look at it like, oh, he's just hating on Pat Will or he is shitting on Pat Will. No, it's not the case. It's far from the case. I just don't want all of that pressure on a second-year player, okay, or a rookie. If you're on a rookie team, you have no expectations to do anything anyway. Like Detroit, man, just go out there hoop, okay? Just go out there hoop and grow. That's the expectation. That's not what Pat Will is getting this year. And who knows? Pat Will might show up and outperform all of our expectations. And if he does, they're ahead of schedule. But I'll say this and I'll leave it at that. Atlanta got to the conference finals first year. First year. And had some key injuries, but got to the conference finals. Who thinks Atlanta is not going to be in the playoffs? Who thinks that the expectation is for them not to get back to the conference finals? But think about this from the organization and not the fans. The fans, we probably think, oh, it's luck, fuck it. I don't think it's luck. I think they just had, luck. Well, let me not say luck of the draw. I think they had the right matchups, and I don't think they had an answer for their shooting. When you have shooting, you got elite shooting and consistent elite shooting, it is hard to stop you when you can go in and knock down 16, 17 threes a night and you know you're going to get that. Sorry. It's hard to stop that. Knicks had nothing for them. Philly could have won if Ben Simmons hadn't choked. I'm going to have to make a video on Ben Simmons because I'm sick of people shitting on him. But they got there because nobody had answer for their shooting to Trae Young. And then Trae got hurt. Giannis got hurt. End of discussion. But Atlanta wasn't going to beat Milwaukee anyway. So, but I guarantee you, even most of the media has Atlanta like a top 4 seed. And remember, they were out of the playoffs when they fired Lloyd Pierce, and they stormed into the playoffs. The point is, the expectations get higher for you the better you do. And the more experience you accumulate, the better you get. That's all I got. Peace.